Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon for everyone. In here, we are 9 group. We will presentation of intermediate structure with the title relative clause, noun clause, adjective clause, and adverb clause. I am Putri Andayani. My name is 030403200109 and my partner is bonita marsella azan and her name is 0301032000 and double one. For the first is my turn. Next. The first I will explain about relative clause, also known as adjective clause. An adjective clause just modifies a noun. It describes or gives information about a noun. An adjective clause follows a noun. For example, the first is I met a man who is kind to everyone. And the second is I met a woman who is a famous poet. And the third is I met a girl who lived in Chicago. And this I will explain about how to recognize an adjective clause. The first it will contain a subject and a verb, and the next it will be begin a relative noun, such as who, whom, whose, that, which, or a relative adverb, such as when, where, why, and others. And recognizing an adjective clause, it will function as an adjective. Example, what kind, how many, and which one. And follow this pattern. Adjective clause will have one of these two patterns. The first is relative noun or adverb plus subject plus verb. And the last is relative pronoun, a subject plus verb. And there are two kinds of clauses. The first is dependent. Dependent clause is a group of words or words that have one subject and one verb, but their meaning is incomplete. Dependent clauses sentence cannot stand alone as sentence due to the lack of meaning. Examples are as follow. When my mother was sleeping. While my mother was sleeping, it's that mean of the sentence is not complete because while my mother was sleeping, we don't know what happened at the time. Dependent clauses characteristic. The first is using a conjunction such as but, and, or, so, for, or, and yet. And the second is has dependent word such as because, however, after, before, in order to, when, will, although, since, wherever, talk, even if, whenever, even talk, and etc. And then this is a dependent clause types. Dependent clause consists of several types, namely as follow. The first is as an adverb clause. Its main function is an adverb that starts with a subordinate conjunction. For example, she went to the market yesterday after she visited her uncle's house in the town. Adverbial clause describes yesterday's statement that after she visited her uncle's house in the town. And the second is as an adjective clause. This clause serves as an adjective to explain a noun. Adjective clause is also known as relative clause. Example, the man who is cooking for the lunch is my father. The boy who is cooking lunch is my father. This is the adjective clause here describe the man or the noun who is cooking for the lunch. And the third is as a noun clause. This clause serves as a subject or object in a sentence. For example, the first is she doesn't understand why my mother always give her some money every Sunday. In this example, the clauses becomes the sentence object. The noun clause in the sentence is why my mother always give her some money every Sunday. And the second is he didn't know what made his brother go away from his house a week ago. She doesn't know what made her brother leave her house a week ago. In this example, the noun clause become the object of the sentence, which is what made his brother go away from his house a week ago. And the third is what make me love this flower is its color. What make me love this flower is its color. The noun clause here is the subject of the sentence, and which is what make me love the flower. And the second is independent clause. Independent clause is a group of words that have a complete or complete subject, verb, and meaning. This clause can stand alone as a sentence because it is meaning intact or doesn't not hang. The characteristic first is have a subject who perform activities or act in a sentence, and the second is have a predicate which is an activity, action, or action performed by the subject or of the sentence, and the last is has complete meaning. For example, the first is Dita is studying in her room, and the second is Tina went to library alone, and the third is Iga goes shopping to the market, the fourth is I'm singing, and the fifth is I love him, and the sixth is Tika swam with her sister, and the seventh is a cow is a mammal my mother always give me money, and the eighth is I'm a tired, and the last is I'm happy. There are two types of relative clause. The first is defining relative clause, and the second is non-defining relative clause. For the next part, we'll explain it by my partner. This is Bonita. Turn. Time is yours.
Defining relative clause. We use defining relative clauses to add essential information to a sentence. The clause goes immediately after the noun it describes. Defining relative pronoun. They define, give us essential information about a general term or expression. Defining relative clauses are not put in commas. For example, I talked to the man who gave you the news. Which man? The one who gave you the news. Second, I read the letter which came this morning. Which letter? The one that arrived this morning. Remember, use who to refer to people and which to refer to animals, things that can replace who and which in defining relative clauses. For example, did you know the girl who or that came to the party yesterday? Second, the book, which or that I'm reading is very interesting. Omission of who, which, and that. Who, which, and that can be the subject of the relative clause. For example, I've talked to the man who sold me his car. Who replaces the man and is the subject of the clause. Sold me his car. Second, the dog which barks every night is my neighbor's, which is the subject of the clause barks every night. They can also be the object or go after of preposition. For example, I loved the film which or that we saw last night. Second, the man who that who you mentioned is the writer. Third, I found the keys for which or that I was looking. I found the keys I was looking for. The fourth, who was the boy to who you were talking? Become who was the boy you were talking to. When the relative is the object, it can be and it is usually omitted in defining relative clauses. Other relatives, when or that, shows time. For example, I will never forget the day plus I met my best friend that day. Become I will never forget that day when or that I met my best friend. Second, when can also be omitted in defining relative clauses. Second is where. Where is refers to places. For example, this is the hotel plus we are staying at the hotel next weekend. Become this is the hotel where we are staying next weekend. Second, the city is interesting plus my sister is living in the city. Become the city where my sister is living is interesting. Third, whose shows possession and it replaces a possessive adjective or a possessive. For example, the man was crying plus his house was on fire. Become the man whose house was on fire was crying. The second, have you met the people? Plus their son is moving to Washington. Become have you met the people whose son is moving to Washington? Whom is used instead of who in formal speech when it is the object of the relative clause or after a preposition. For example, I couldn't talk to a friend plus I called him last night. Become I couldn't talk to the friend whom I called last night. Second, I don't know the student plus the teacher was shooting at the student. Become the student at whom the teacher was shooting. Non-defining relative clause. They give us more extra information about a person, animal, thing, and etc. Already identified by a name, a possessive, etc. They go between commas. For example, your brother, who gave me the news, saw the accident himself. Second, I read Martin's letter, which was full of gossip. In non-defining relative clauses, we can use that and we can't omit the relatives. For example, I liked Toy Story, which I've seen recently. Not that, no omission. Second, Shakespeare, whom you just mentioned, is the most famous British playwright. Not that, no omission. Third, I found my keys, which I had been looking for. Not that, no omission. Defining or non-defining. Remember, defining relative clauses don't take commas. Second, that can replace who, which, and when. The third, you can omit who, which, when, and that. when they are not the subject of the relative clause. Non-defining relative clauses. First, go between commas. Second, you can't use that. The third, you can't omit the relatives. Comparing between defining relative clause and non-defining relative clauses. For example, the neighbors who live next door are very friendly. My neighbors who live next door are very friendly. I enjoyed the film. Which or that you recommended? I enjoyed Little Miss Sunshine, which you recommended. That's all from our presentation about relative clause, adjective, adjective clause, noun clause, and adverb clause. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.